Hello, guys. Listen, it's been quite a while since we've actually had a hurricane that is real bad for the southeastern coast of the United States, in potentially areas that I think that last time we really had. Well, we've had a few. I think there a Sandy and there was a Hugo and there's been a few, but it's been a few years since we've had something really potentially to cause major damage to the East Coast. And this thing darn well could make landfall somewhere between Savannah, Georgia, would be probably the southernmost place it would make landfall. It could make landfall anywhere between there and up around Cape Hatteras. And so South Carolina is right in the center of its trajectory right at this moment, and it's heading toward the east coast of the United States. And right now, it's just a tropical storm out there in the ocean, but it's going to intensify something horrible over the next few days as it moves through the warm waters of the Atlantic, and as it approaches the east coast of the United States. So let's start the charts and let's take a look at this hurricane that has a lot of potential. This thing has a lot of potential to cause a lot of disruption in the east coast of the United States. Probably when it makes landfall, it's probably going to do a very bad damage over an area probably about 100 miles wide and about 30 miles inland. It's going to do a lot of damage when it comes in because it's going to be a very powerful storm. And it looks to me like it's going to recurve and go somewhere around. Do you remember where that old place used to be? Whenever you're traveling on the highway, there was a place called South of the Border. If you were down there traveling on, I think it was I-95. Anyway, I remember time after time I used to be traveling down the I-95, and I would see these signs that said Pedro is hungry, or tacos today, sunny taco. Different signs, these road signs on the side of the road with South of the Border, it's called. That's what the place is called. It's called South of the Border. And it's this little tiny little amusement park stationed between, I think it's the border of South Carolina and North Carolina, right on the border. It's called South of the Border. It's a cute little place. I never ever went there. When I was a kid, I always wanted to go there. We're traveling through there on our way to the Smoky Mountains or whatever, and I always wanted to go there. It's like, Dad, stop the car. Let's go to South of the Border. It's like, no, we got to take time. We got to make time, you know. Never did get to stop there and see but it was a place that was just out there to get your money anyway, you know. Anyway, I got sidetracked. Here's the hurricane. She's barreling down, heading right towards South of the Border. That's where she's headed in a few days. So Tropical Storm Florence right now, at this advisory, she's only 65 miles an hour. But here's its wind path where it's heading toward. And as you can see, it's aimed. There's South of the Border right there. And it's aimed at South of the Border, you know, right. Well, it's kind of aimed between North and South Carolina, right at the border between North and South Carolina. That's kind of where it's aimed, but it very well might recurve a little bit and head up toward the Cape Hatteras area. Here's a picture of the storm as it is right now, and it's not very well organized. It's got a lot of dry air moving right into the center of the circulation. This is what I'm seeing on the radar, and I'm seeing an awful lot of, it looks like the reason that's keeping it down right at this moment is it looks like a lot of wind shear to me, looking at the radar imagery. That's what I'm seeing anyway, when I look at the radar imagery. But that's going to evidently disappear so that this thing can grow over the next few days. And so from a small seed, what we see right here, it's going to grow into a major size oak tree. I mean, using a metaphor, you know, so this thing's going to really get a lot stronger. It looks to me like the steering currents. Now, looking at this, this is modeling. This is what's called hurricane modeling. And what we see here is, see these loop-de-loops, especially the yellow model, goes up here and makes a complete loop-de-loop, and then it circles back in around. That is showing me that as it comes up here into this recurve, just south of the Carolinas, it's going to hit an area where there's very little steering currents. The steering currents are weak, so the models are showing that weak steering currents just off the coast of the Carolinas. So that means it could be very unpredictable when it gets up in that area. Okay, here shows the intensity. It shows it going to be a category 1, and then a 2, and then a 3, and then a 4 as it marches across just south of Bermuda. So this has been the update on this storm. Here's another model plot showing you how weak the steering currents here are just off the coast of the Carolinas, because the models are not in a tight convergence right off the coast of South Carolina right here. That's what I'm seeing anyway. So when she gets just off the coast of South Carolina, she's going to wobble a little bit, and it's hard to tell exactly right now exactly where she's going to go at that point. So we're going to have basically in a few days from now, we're going to have a major hurricane, a majorly powerful hurricane. And because it's already been, if we look down here at these charts, we can see it's already been a Hurricane 4, a Category 4, and it's weakened off back into a tropical storm. I'll tell you what that does. Hurricanes grow, and that means it's going to have a rather large wind field for a tropical storm. And that means it's already starting with rather a large base. So this would kind of be like a plant that would grow and get to be a big plant, and somebody would come along and chop it down. It would have a rather large root base, see? And so when it starts to grow again, it's going to grow very vigorously because it's already established a root base. That's what this is like. It's already established a wind field. It's got a rather large wind field from being a Category 4 already. That's been downsized down. And so when it grows back, it's going to grow back much quicker than it would if it was establishing itself from nothing. Okay? If that makes sense to you. It makes sense to me because that's what's happening here. Anyway, so we're going to have to keep a tight eye on this storm, because when this storm grows back into a Category 4 or a Category 5 a few days from now, it's going to have an immensely large wind field. Okay, and it's going to be a very potent storm and headed right toward the east coast of the United States. So I want to do some advisories on this one, because this is going to be a bad one, I think. This is going to be one we're going to remember for a while. And if you're in the wind path of this thing, keep tuned to my station. I'll give you the best updates probably of anybody out there, because I use the National Hurricane Center, but I also, from when I was a kid, I had a fixation on hurricanes. I mean, when I was only 6 years old, I was tracking these things, you know, and I was studying them when I was only like 6 years old. So I know a lot about hurricanes, you know. But so do the forecasters at the National Hurricane Center, and I go by there because they have the equipment there. Basically, what I do is I take a look at what they're looking at, and then I make my own reference points as to what I think, too, along with what they think, you know. And so I really give you guys a good summary of what this hurricane's probably going to do in the upcoming days. So thank you guys for listening. Like and subscribe, and we're going to stay on top of this one as she approaches the east coast of the United States. Bye-bye, guys.